Hello everyone, Fru here. Welcome to today's relevant read. So guys, in today's relevant read, we're going to be looking at this article that talks about 3 tips for growing as an engineer. So 3 tips for growing as an engineer. This is a read coming from Jacob Harrington. And I thought it was very interesting because on this channel we talk about technology, IT, and once you get into the field, typically people want to get into the field, but once you get into the field, how do you actually grow as an engineer, as a developer, as an analyst, or whatever role you play within the field? So this is a very short article and should give us some 3 pointers. I'm going to be reviewing what Jacob has to say here. It should give us some 3 pointers on how to grow as an engineer. Now, let's get started. The first one that he talks about in this article is really around how how to learn. So you need to find your your learning style, right? Find a teaching style that works for you, or find a learning style that works for you. I would say learning style that works for you as well, right? Because the need to grow, you always have to learn. You're consuming information, but what style works for you? For some people, let me actually zoom in here. Going to school, getting a computer science degree, or the traditional way of learning works for them. But for some other people, that doesn't work for them, or they don't even have the option to do that, right? And so they might be looking at doing things more like going to boot camps, doing self study, learning on your own, or working on side projects. So whichever environment works for you, is something that you have to find and make it work for yourself. No one can tell you, oh, boot camps will work better for you, or a 4 year university will work better for you. You know how you study, right? And it's really up to you to investigate and say which approach works for me, right? For some people, a boot camp is too much, right? The pressure of trying to study everything within 12 weeks could be too much, right? Whereas for other people, they like the slow and gradual approach of the university, the more structured environment there, and connections they can build to them. That's a better approach. So again, you just have to figure out what works for you and be able to go and be able to pick the approach and style that works for you. Because in IT, believe it or not, you always have to be learning. Technology is changing almost every 6 months, or every year. Some new technology is coming up, and the question is, how can you always learn or teach yourself to keep up to date? Because if you're not learning, guys, you will not be growing, right? If you're not learning, there's no way you're going to be growing. So first thing to grow as an engineer is to find your learning style. For me, as an example, I'm done with school. I have my master's degree. I'm thinking of a PhD at some point in the future, but we'll see about that. But at this point, I always have to learn, and one of the ways I like to learn is to buy books. I buy a lot of books, and say if I'm learning about Spark, I'm learning about MapReduce, I'm learning about containers or serverless. The first thing I do, I go to Amazon and I buy a book, right? And I read through the book, not cover to cover, but I kind of pick the sections that I want and I read through the book. And then based on what I see from there, I can substantiate my understanding by looking for YouTube videos, looking for articles online, and then substantiating what I learn that way. But I know people who would swear that they would never read a book, that reading a book, a cover book or a hard copy book, is old school, right? Again, you just have to figure out, what works for you. For me, books works for me. It's not for everybody, right? For some people, they all they want to do is watch videos, and if there's no video to it, then it's not for them. For other people, it might be podcasts. For other people, it might be having a lecture, somebody lecture to them, and you have to figure out that learning style that works for you and really honing on that. So very important. I like this first point that was made here. The second point here is to be interdisciplinary, right? So if you want to grow as an engineer, you have to be interdisciplinary. And basically, if I was to put this in a short form, is to say, you cannot afford to be a one-trick pony, right? You cannot afford to be a one-trick pony. You have to have a diverse set of skills. So take for example, and I'm gonna explain what he read and talk through what he explains here. But so take for example, you are working in a team as a database administrator, for example, right? one way to approach it is just to be a database administrator and nothing else, right? You just know how to administer Oracle or SQL Server, do your backups, your recovery, and nothing else, right? But that's just a one-trick pony. What if something has to do with the hardware? Or what if something has to do with networking and the database is slow and you have to understand networking, right? What if the business comes up with a problem and you're seeing that whatever they're talking about is not going to fit with the current database capacity that you have. So bottom line is you have to be able to think across different spectrums, right? You cannot just afford to be one discipline and that's it, right? It wouldn't really take you far or allow you to grow as an engineer. So the takeaway from this is always learn different skills, diversify your portfolio of skills. If you know database administrator or administration, maybe add some networking in there, add some hardware, add some software design principles, add some architecture, right? Add some governance in there, right? Add some security in there. So if you're a database administrator, do you understand what's happening in the security space? Because of course you're securing people's data, and it would make sense to have some understanding around that. The quote that he leaves here is, and I really like this when I read it, is that a mentor once told me the most valuable people in any organization live at the intersection of two seemingly unrelated skills. I just cannot really tell you how amazing I feel like this quote is, right? The most valuable people, most valuable. So we're talking about MVP, right? So if you want to be an MVP in your organization, the most valuable people in the organization live at the intersection of two seemingly unrelated skill sets. Very powerful, guys. If your goal or your dream is just to learn one technology and just make money out of it, and just that be it, then you might really be missing a huge opportunity to grow your career and to be very successful in the long run. So diversify your experience, right? So as an example here, it says, well, you could be a software engineer, but what about having some user experience, right? Understanding some design experience that could come in handy. It might not be obvious when you're getting those diverse experience, but believe it or not, right? When the time comes and you show up with those diverse experience, people will flock to you, all right? And that's the more influence you get and the more your career can grow, right? So build a strong foundation of multiple skill sets, problem solving as such, and that could really help you in the long run. Now, last but not least, it talks about create content for yourself. Create content for yourself. I'm a very big believer in this one. It's a little bit understated, and I don't think a lot of people talk about it from a career advice perspective. But you need to create content, right? If you want to grow, you want to be an expert, you want to stand out as a leader or a thought leader in your industry, there's no way you can do that without actually improving what you know. And the way you prove what you know is you share it. You share it, and you share it by creating content. When I look at some of the most successful people in business, like, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, you know, or Warren Buffett, the first thing that they do is, they write books. They talk about the experience. If you want to read a book on Warren Buffett, you find dozens, if not hundreds of them, some of which he's written and some written about him, right? Because he's willing to share what he knows. Warren Buffett cannot be the most successful investor, one of the most successful investors on the planet, and decide not to share his knowledge, right? What he does is, he has all the money on planet Earth, but he still takes time to write books, to interviews, and to share his knowledge. That's the mindset that you should have, right? The Warren Buffett mindset. Be a sharer, right? The writer here talks about the way interviewing Emma, talks about Emma loves to write, right? And by being able to share that, people reading this article, for example, let's go down to the author, right? Me reading this article from Jacob Harrington already establishes Jacob as a senior engineer because I'm learning from what he has to say. And now he's building his credibility, he's building his portfolio. If I was a hiring manager and I want people on my team that can help others grow as a senior engineer, who am I gonna get? I'll get Jacob Harrington over some Joe Blow that doesn't, has any portfolio for themselves, right? So be somebody that goes out and create content. The avenues to create content today it's just enormous, right? You have LinkedIn, you have Instagram, you have YouTube, you have blog posts you can write, Quora, you can answer questions on Quora. There's just a lot of avenues for you to go out, create content. You know something, you know a subject area that could be DBA, could just be writing code, front end, back end, a specific type of methodology that you might have mastered. Why don't you take some time once a week, once a month, and just write a blog post, right? I know people might say, well, I'm not the best writer on the planet, but guys, if you don't write and create the content, how would you gain the mastery, right? It's like anything else. You have to do some work in order to gain that mastery. All right. So I think that this is a good summary. I really like this read, and it's one of the relevant read I thought I would share for us. So growth comes from good habits, right? And it's by you understanding that it's the responsibility for you to grow your career is on you, right? And all of the three things that have been mentioned here is for up to you to do it. Finding a teaching style that works for you so you can learn, because you always have to be learning. Number one, find a teaching style that works for you. Number two, be interdisciplinary. Don't be a one trick pony. Learn across a diverse set of skill sets. And then number three, create content. Be prolific. Create content for yourself. Just as an example, I have, for those of you that are watching, I do have my LinkedIn here, as I created this group, Data Ninjas, for big data, deep learning, data science, AI, machine learning, and career, right? And this group has grown with almost 200 and something members, right? It gives me credibility. It gives me a platform where I can share. And I encourage all of you watching this video to consider joining this group on LinkedIn, right? And that's where people can converse, can engage, can discuss, and keep, not only showing the expertise, but helping other people grow as well. And in addition to that, there is this book available on Amazon, which I wrote as well. Your game plan for lucrative career in data analytics: 5 simple steps. Again, guys, this is a great book that a lot of people come to me for advice, and I decided to put all of my nuggets into this book. And if you're thinking about getting into the field, guys, this is another book. This is a book that can definitely help you. So I encourage you to check it out. And the point for showing this is, that I'm a student of all of these articles, and that's why I share them, right? I'm a student. I believe in what these people talk about, right? To create content. That's why you see me creating these groups. That's why you see me writing this, right? Creating groups or writing books, right? Because I learned from doing those as well. Before publishing a book, I had no idea. Now I have an idea on how to publish a book, and in addition to the technical stuff or in the details within the book. So it's about growth, right? It's definitely about growth. The responsibility to grow your career is on you. And there are steps that you can take to make sure that you grow into being a very successful engineer, right? This could be engineer or just a very successful worker in general. It doesn't have to be engineer, right? So 3 tips for growing as an IT engineer or an IT worker or as a professional. This applies to you. All right, guys. So Jacob, thanks again for sharing this amazing read. I'm going to leave a link to this article as usual in the description. So if you want to check it out for yourself, definitely check it out. And thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.